My name's Chris.
And I'm Kristie.
This is the Washing Up Podcast. And
It's vintage week, but I meant to start it off with going, and my name's Kristie, and welcome to Vintage Week with me, your elderly host.
no, your vintage host.
Your vintage host.
I mean, we already had that conversation during the night. And Reem spent a lot of time tonight casting a lot of aspersions on a lot of things being vintage.
No, I think there is a dictionary definition.
There is, I've got it. I actually got it.
You got
in
it?
my
Okay,
notes.
cool. Because I think the 80s do fall into vintage.
83.
So
it's 40 years.
You and I are both...
Yeah, it's 40 years. But
technically vintage.
So I actually looked it up. So we'll get into that in a moment. So
I cost more.
Yes. But not as much as an antique, which is 100.
Oh, okay. Well,
so there is actually... So this is the thing. And
okay.
Well, we'll get into it now. So the definition between vintage and all of those sorts of things. So
yes.
Antique is over 100 years.
Okay.
Vintage is a more fluid definition,
mm-hmm.
but it's accepted broadly that vintage is 40 years.
Cool. But, I would also consider things from the 90s vintage because it's a very specific,
yeah, so the idea is...
it just has a look to it.
It literally means of age. Vintage just means of age. So
we can finally drink and vote and have sex.
Exactly.
Now we've reached 40.
Then everything's vintage. But no, this is the thing, is that vintage as a definition is a very loose definition, broadly accepted at 40 years.
Then what is ancient?
The ancient, I can actually give you the ancient historian's answer to this.
Okay.
There's going to be a lot of ancient history in this one because Gav made a pyramid. But, so ancient is technically considered to be anything pre-fall of Rome.
Oh, okay.
Right? So when you're talking about ancient historians...
500s, 600s?
Mid 400s.
Okay.
Anything pre-fall of Rome fits into ancient history.
Okay.
And anything after that... is technically sort of, if you were giving it those broad brushstroke categories, a modern history topic.
Yeah.
But there's a whole pile of other eras. But
because you've got medieval and the Renaissance.
Yeah. But for the way that most people in Australia would engage with it, which is schooling, ancient history is anything Roman Empire, fall of Roman Empire and before.
Okay.
And anything after that is not counted as ancient history. That's the broad definitions. Anyway, we're doing a lot of definitions and we're not doing a lot of talking about Bakeoff. But before we do that, thank you everybody.
No, we had to lay the groundwork.
Yeah, before we do that, thank you everybody for your feedback in the last couple of weeks. I had a lot of people get back to us on the Felicity conversation. They really enjoyed the Felicity conversation. If you didn't listen to that, please go and listen to it and then reshare it. Also, thank you for the feedback.
Smash that like button.
Thank you for the feedback for those of you who listened to the Plague-addled episode.
Oh God!
A couple of people, a couple of bakers reached out. I'm not going to name them. A couple of bakers reached out and hoped we were feeling much better. One of whom said, and I know they meant it in the nicest possible way, we sounded horrible. And look, we were coughing up a storm. My throat was dying. You can hear by the end of that episode, I am just trying to finish because my throat was dead.
And look, you can still tell I'm still not 100%.
Whereas I'm fine. So,
obviously, my family, my history family, what do they call ancestors?
Your history family,
my ancient family,
your vintage family,
and my modern history family. We're not good with plagues.
No. You don't have a good plague constitution.
No.
So thank you though for all the feedback, and a lot of people actually really liked that episode too. So thank you for liking it, even though we were coughing a lot. Less coughing tonight is what we're aiming for. So with
that's a bar.
Let's get. Look, I like setting bars we can step over.
Okay.
Okay.
Like a limbo bar. Oh no, you go under that one.
Under the limbo bar.
I was trying to make it a vintage kind of
limbo. Anyway.
Yeah.
Oh god. Anyway, so we're going to move on. We started with a black and white introduction.
A drinks trolley. That's a vintage bar.
We started with a black and white introduction.
Yes.
Which I mean, technically, the black and white introduction with no talkies is very turn of the century. So it's actually technically an antique, but we won't split hairs. I really like that introduction, though. The absolutely no, including the Welcome to the Great Australian Bake-Off, nothing.
Nothing. It's great.
It was really fun.
We need more pianola and subtitles.
If there's one thing I say a lot about Australian television, it's the lack of pianola. It's really harming it. Now, also, if you are young and you don't know what a pianola is...
Just go talk to Chris's mum. She'll show you their pianola.
We're going to have to spend a lot
They have a pianola off in their family.
We have. Anyway.
Many people have pianolas in the Buchanan family.
Now, Reem did discuss a lot about what vintage was, and I quote her directly here at the start of the episode, and she carried on like this for the rest of the episode. Vintage is pastel colours and ugly furniture. The pastel colours is a choice, especially since, for me, vintage is mission brown.
Oh my god, yeah.
And yellow.
Oh, and orange.
And orange. Like the colours that were on Alona's cake.
And everyone in the 70s, from the 70s is going, oh my god, that was the height of fashion back then.
Occasionally that really burnt orange that you'd get on crock pots.
Yes.
Like,
oh my god.
They are the colours of vintage. Pastel colours indicates how young Reem is.
Pastel indicates the atomic era, which is technically vintage because it's not over 100 yet. Because that's the 1950s. Yeah. But yeah, look, I just feel that we are about to merge into the era of, like, I've seen it come back, is like that gold and pastel pink though. You remember that part of the 80s? Oh.
But interesting enough, the ugly furniture bit's interesting because there are lots of dealers out there who would argue the ugly furniture thing.
It's beauty is in the eye of the beholder. And
if you're used to having things that have a USB charging port attached to them, everything else is ugly. So let's get into it. So the signature. Now, I had a lot of comments about the signature, actually, more than I anticipated. So we tried threads tonight, by the way.
Can't put a filter over your furniture.
So we tried threads tonight as opposed to...
Well, technically you could. It used to be a crochet blanket, and I think that's the
issue. Or
issue.
plastic covering. Anyway, so we tried threads tonight as opposed to Twitter. We're going to make a decision before next week, which we're going to stick with for now. If threads could please add a hashtag before next week, that would be great. They are talking about it. I really wish they would. Anything to make sure that we can possibly escape the bird. Anyway, but the number one feedback I got was they went profiteroles. And everyone flooded the timeline and went, I don't consider profiteroles vintage. They were like, I actually feel that they were more, they've been around for a while, but they sort of became modernised with things like the Croquembouche.
Yeah.
And so they're not that vintage in a lot of people's minds. Because they argue that, like, the profiterole has had a huge resurgence and has maintained a popularity. It's not of a time and only of a time.
It's because profiteroles are fucking delicious and they're timeless.
They are. And I mean, it's one of the few things I can bake really well.
Look, I don't give a fuck. You could have called this bloody Pizza Week and put profiteroles in it, and I'm here for it. I will back you up 100%.
My other thing was that I thought this
could have been Bread Week, and you said a profiterole challenge, and I will back you up. Why?
To go back...
Because it's profiteroles.
To go back to something, though, we raised last week, or you raised last week in particular, I feel this was the perfect opportunity to see vol au vents. You know, the dish you're going to haunt for all time.
Vol au vents have been done on Bakeoff. I just don't think we've done profiteroles enough.
You don't think we've done profiteroles enough? Let's remember, everybody, the series of British where they couldn't make choux pastry. Can we all remember that one, please?
Exactly. So this is what I mean. Is like we have to make it up to the choux pastry gods, and more profiteroles is what they demand.
So 12 profiteroles with filling. That's what they were after. Then they said to Rachel, any advice, Rachel? And she said, I'm expecting 12 profiteroles with a really tasty filling. Rachel, at this point in time, what are you adding? It was Captain States the obvious. And look, I really like what she's done this season, and she's been really good. But there have been moments where Rachel's feedback has been to repeat the original instruction.
That the host has said. But you know what? I think she's helping the people with ADHD in the shed. Because there are times when you'll blank out and you're just like, what the fuck was said? Like, I would be hopeless in this. I would be going, what was that? I don't know. I missed it altogether. What are we making?
Every bake for you was a technical.
Yeah.
Every bake for you was a technical because something is missing.
Yeah, but at least the technical has some written
Yeah,
instructions.
but that's the thing. You would thrive at the technical
Quite
because, like,
possibly.
every other bake would be missing. Just you wouldn't know what you're making.
No.
So you come out and you just look around at the end of the bake, look around, and go, "Is that right?" Why I've made a cake? Why am I seeing profiteroles? This is a problem.
No, I've made profiteroles and I'm seeing cake. Everyone goes, no, Kristie, that's fine.
End of the beef Wellington challenge. You're like, more profiteroles? You've made a Wellington Croquembouche. This is stacked Wellingtons on top of it.
Oh, the grand old Duke of York. He had 10. Oh, that's the Duke of
York,
Wellington.
not Wellington. Yeah. Can I just
Wrong
say,
Duke.
I would very much appreciate it now if somebody could make me a Croquembouche of Wellington.
Oh, gosh.
Like, I now want one of these things, a Wellington Croquembouche. Anyway, so
Please make it for him so he doesn't try and make it himself.
it'll be really good if I do. Anyway, so Galia actually stressed this week that she was focused on time management. And I like that. As I said, we talked about her showstopper last week.
Yeah.
And she actually really honed in on the time management.
Yeah, she's
and
found
did a
the
good
groove.
job. So
Yeah.
she's working a lot more effectively now at thinking these things through.
So what are we, sorry, I'll let you get to your notes.
Adam.
Yes.
So Adam was asked about, what he thinks of when he thinks vintage. And he said fancy dinner parties with food that might not have been that fancy. Now, Adam, I will have you know that an aspic is the heights of cuisine. You take all of that delicious food and put it in jelly. That's a treat, my friend. That's a treat.
But I think you'll find the best aspics served at those parties did contain mostly the lowest common denominator of food, like hot dogs or tinned fruit or a combination of both.
Yeah, but the jelly was made of horses' hooves, so how far down the line are we going here? In reality, an aspic filled with hot dogs is just using all of the animal.
So is an aspic sandwich a hot dog?
It's an aspic sandwich pudding.
Ooh.
Answers on the back of a postcard, everybody. So Laura then gave Smeg a bit of a drink, by saying that they were very vintage in looks. And I'm like, yay, we got a plug. And she fitted in and it sort of worked. Well done. Reem then said that vintage was 80s and back.
Yep.
Which we've now come to the conclusion of. Darren at this point had distressed to everybody that the shoe was actually the focus of what they should be doing. Mm-hmm. So Sandra said that she wasn't giving us profiteroles. She was giving us cream puffs.
Oh, see, the thing that I've really enjoyed watching Canadian Bakeoff is that I've learned... Oh, the great Canadian
No,
Bakeoff.
we call it Bakeoff.
I know, but I'm trying to do the correct words.
Why?
Anyway,
You're not on.
just let me get it out. That's what she said. So, is finding things that that Canadians say that people from the US have just bastardized. So, Americans say caramel, whereas the lovely Canadians also say caramel,
Yes.
which is great. Like, there's things that we all share in common, except apparently cream puffs.
Yeah. Cream puffs are slightly different. So...
But I would have thought they would have had profiteroles because they had the French there. This is what doesn't make sense.
No.
But I guess the Brits just went, nope. Like the Scots who can't wear kilts, you can't see.
You can't
see
they banned
profiteroles.
really crazy things.
Yeah.
And the Canadians went, great, but we're going to say aluminum and you're going to like it. No, we don't. Anyway, so Sandra went with, though, very traditional vintage style flavours. Chantilly cream, Morello cherry, which,
And a pretty face. Sorry.
and then a pistachio caramel. Now, at this point, Sandra said she was using the 100% water method. So not milk as the liquid, but 100% water. And Darren, at this point, raised, you're probably not going to get the same browning because the sugars and stuff in the milk are caramelized. So you're probably not going to get that. One of the things, I'll sort of mention it here, but it'll come up again in a little bit.
Uh-huh.
I've appreciated with Darren's feedback, and I know people go, they can edit the show, and they can edit the show, but Darren, when he gives feedback at the start, tends to give really concise and precise feedback on, I think your big problem is this could happen, and then this could happen, and then this could happen. And it usually does.
Look, I think it's far too natural and far too, on the spot for it to be anything but his experience, skill, and insight.
And that's the thing. He's been really good at again, when he gets to, not to rush too far ahead, but he does say with Sandra's that they weren't, dark enough, and he goes, that'd be the fact that you used water, not milk. And that's where you didn't get the caramelization. And again, so I like the fact that Darren's advice has been really... And look, Rachel's given that really good advice too. It's just unfortunate that occasionally she gives the same feedback as they literally just said.
I would point out, though, we learned 2 things about Darren. That's one of them. He doesn't like pale patisserie.
Yeah, he doesn't like pale patisserie.
No, we'll find out the
rest of
next.
it later. Alona. Now, we didn't get a lot of Alona. Now, I do want to raise this now, given that she's, Star Baker. I might have wanted to see a bit more of the person whose whole brand is vintage. And like she said straight up, she's like, it's me. This week is me. So she did a Black Forest with Amarena Cherry and Kirsch drink. Look, and I love the fact that Alona kept it so A, vintage, but B, classic Bakeoff with Kirsch.
Yes.
Had to happen. And again, a chantilly cream and cracklin. And we got a few bakers who went with the cracklin, a few who didn't. Then we come back to Reem, who just goes, choux pastry is hard. I really don't like it that much. Look, again, I like choux pastry. I can't make any other pastry. I can make choux pastry. But I also understand it because choux is really easy to fuck up. And you don't know it's fucked up until you put it in the oven and it doesn't go anywhere. But, again, there's a whole series of British Bake-Off contestants who don't like choux because they couldn't do it. Galia.
Yeah.
So Rachel mentioned that they looked flat. And Galia's like, yeah, but they did rise in practice.
Yeah, but not okay, that's like saying I'm hitting all these 3-pointers while I'm in doing my training for basketball, and then you come out to the game and you're just missing them all.
There's somebody in your face.
And you're like, no, that one should count because I got all my 3-pointers in training.
Now, the flavour was passion fruit cream and white chocolate coconut ganache to glaze. The passion fruit cream I was here for. But she was having measurement issues, so she then did have to have another go at the choux.
Yeah.
Neil. Now, Neil made a very conscious decision on smaller choux.
Yes.
I want a dainty little mouthful.
Yes, and Rachel was all for this. I'm assuming dainty is her cup of tea because it goes well with a cup of tea. Whereas Darren, here's number 2. Don't hold back on the choux for Darren.
No.
Don't you present him with petit fours. He doesn't want your poultry profiteroles, your poultry pasty profiteroles. He wants a big, dark profiterole. He likes them big, he likes them dark.
Well, not that dark. I mean, Gabs were technically the darkest because they were chocolate, and we'll get to that.
Okay.
But, yeah. Now, the idea was, he said he was going for texture over size. He wanted the texture to be perfect.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
The chocolate coffee filling that he went with, I was a fan of that. And look, when they cut those open in the judging, they look superb. That whole thing looked absolutely superb.
Look, I'll take your profiterole any size. I wonder if you can make a massive profiterole. Could you just make one great big profiterole?
You could. It's like one of those giant Ferrero Rochers.
Yeah, just a big profiterole. You can fit your head in.
Just one big one.
Yeah. Oh, a smashable profiterole where you have all bits and pieces in the middle. Just things.
People are going to take these ideas and run with it and then claim them.
Yeah.
Reem's going to put this on TikTok.
Okay.
Reem's going to learn choux pastry again and go, I love it now. And
if it goes on TikTok and she's done it, I'm happy. You know why? Because she's such a good cook and her flavors are great and she's such a good baker that her content will be good. So she'd only put it up there if it was good.
There we go.
So if it's a good idea, happy to share it, Reem.
So it was also
Neil's. Show me how to use the tick and the tock.
It was also Neil's 10th anniversary. We'll come back to that in a moment because there was both a absolute heart-melting, beautiful moment and one of the funniest moments I think in the series. Yeah. Adam. Now Adam turns to the camera and says very matter-of-factly, there's no trick to roasting strawberries. And I wasn't aware that anyone thought there was.
It's not strawberries roasting by a fire, it's chestnuts roasting by an open fire.
Yeah, but the fact that it was like people at home are thinking there's a trick to roasting strawberries and I just want to allay their fears.
That's true. This isn't... Okay, sorry, I was taking it as a kind of like everyone roasts strawberries. There's no real trick to it.
No, but
But
it's like
now
this-
more people are going to be roasting strawberries, and that just worries me.
But then he was doing strawberry and licorice creme diplomat. Now, licorice divides. We know licorice divides. You are not.
I get in weird moods where I can do a bit of licorice,
Yes.
and then it's just like the devil's food to me.
Yes.
Like, it's not pea level. if someone said, okay, I'll give you $1 million, you just have to eat one or the other, I would be like, give me the licorice.
Yeah.
Or I'd say, just give me the $1 million. Why do we have to?
Yeah. Why is this food based?
Yeah. Why is this dependent on what I'll consume?
But
this isn't, what is it called? That Mike...
Fear factor.
Fear factor.
Or who dares wins?
Who dares wins. There's no Mike Whitney with his perm waiting for me.
There's no Mike Whitney making you walk across a tightrope.
Yeah.
I like the fact that
covered in scorpions.
There's no anti-vax nut job standing there going, put your head in the thing of cockroaches.
Oh no, he's anti-vax.
No, not Mike Whitney. I'm talking about Joe Rogan, Fear Factor.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Yeah. Anyway.
Oh, that dude. Yes. Okay.
The anti-vax nut job.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and if you want to sue me, bring it. You are anti-vax. You say it all the time. Anyway, moving on. So I do like licorice. Rachel pointed out it was a very divisive flavour, and then Adam later on was like, I actually want more of it. I really like it. I want to put more in there.
Yeah, but don't have too much.
No.
You'll be on the loo.
You'll never leave the toilet. Now, Darren subtly reminded him, now the way I phrased it, and Darren phrased it so much more beautifully. He talked about, now last week obviously you made the strawberry jam, and you went with your chunky strawberry jam, and so it was a bit runny, and you want to make sure that it's not too runny, because the way I phrased it was Darren reminded him that he screwed up strawberries before. Because it's basically in the nicest possible way. Darren was like, remember last week when I said you might want to blend those so you get a thicker thing, and you didn't, and then you got a runny thing, and it sort of didn't work. Don't ruin your pastry.
No. Well, he learned to roast them instead.
He learned. Now, at this point, Nat was asking the question, so they asked the question to Nat, what's vintage to you? And Nat responded with, Season 1 of the Great Australian Bake-Off.
Oh, no.
My question, are we talking real Season 1, or are we talking Channel 9 Season 1?
Oh, dear God.
I officially, even though they've now renumbered them all to say that Channel 9 is Season 1, I prefer to refer to Channel 9 as Season 0, or not at all. Which is my overwhelming...
It's the season we all forgot.
It's the Jacobson year. And we just pretend the Jacobson year never happened. And, we just all pretend. Everybody pretend. By the way, speaking of changes, just quickly, congratulations to our Mel on new series of Taskmaster Australia.
Oh, it's brilliant. I was so happy to see her on there. Good lineup.
It's a good lineup, and Peter Hellier. And
It's true.
I'm bitterly disappointed that they couldn't get past Season 2 without pressing the Hellier button.
Oh, God.
I was so hopeful we could get to Season 2. Anyway, moving on. Reem. So Reem was making Dalgona coffee. Now she's like, Dalgona coffee is a whipped coffee. And then she goes, I don't like coffee. Now, I know what you're going to say, but I'm going to raise it anyway. You don't like coffee, but you're doing Dalgona coffee. Why?
Because she's awesome. Because she's like, fuck it, I'm a baker. I want to learn techniques. When am I going to use this? I think it's beautiful because one of the classic flavors in vintage stuff is coffee. And she's doing like the modern version of it. Yeah, it was a fad, which I've only just learned about. And
Rachel
that I am vintage because that's me.
Rachel did call it out. She's like, that's a pretty modern food trend, really, isn't it?
Yeah, but this is what I love about Reem is that she's the kind of TikToker I would follow because she's actually filtering all the TikTok shit out there so I can just get to the good stuff. She's obviously tried it. It's worked. And she's like, I'm going to use it. And I think that's what makes her such a wonderful baker and also like social media person to follow.
Yeah. Look, I don't have a problem with her doing it.
No.
But I'm just like, I always find it really interesting when bakers make a choice to do a flavour they don't personally like. And it's, again, more about...
But is it just not like, or is it matcha? Like, Like, for
No, but
you.
nobody should do matcha. We'll come to that because
This is what I'm talking about. It's like, if you were to choose to make something with matcha, that's when I'd be like, what the actual
No, well, Reem said straight up she
Where
doesn't...
is my husband?
But Reem said straight up...
What have you done with him?
But Reem said straight up she doesn't like coffee. Does not like it.
Yeah,
So,
she's not saying it's the devil's drink.
But what I'm saying is...
And it should be barred.
in some ways I'm praising her because what I'm saying is...
Oh, okay, sorry.
She can't test the balance.
Well, she can.
But she doesn't like it, so she's not really going to understand the balance of it.
True, yeah.
Because any coffee flavours probably... It'd be like someone trying to balance licorice flavour and not liking aniseed.
Okay,
right?
yeah.
If you don't like aniseed and you do
Even
licorice...
just the smallest amount of aniseed
it's too
might
much.
turn you off. Okay.
It's too much. So, like, look, as I said, I personally wouldn't have if I was her. But by the same token, like, credit where it's due, she seemed to balance it quite well.
Yeah.
Then we go to Laura. So her one was Earl Grey caramel with Earl Grey creme diplomat, topped with a candied lemon.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, the candied lemon, she didn't give it enough time. When we get to the judging, it didn't quite cook off in time. That was her crack one idea, was the candied lemon. Use the candied lemon,
yeah.
Then we go back to Neil because he gets an anniversary letter from his wife. And it's a lovely letter which Cal reads out.
Yeah.
And it's, talking about what a wonderful partner you are and it's 10 years and blah, 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 blah. There's a lovely picture on there. And Neil's crying. And then Neil takes a deep breath and goes, I haven't got you anything. I'll see you when I get back.
Neil, I got a hot tip for you. And for anyone going up to a 10-year anniversary, Darty Freya wrote a song about 10 years.
Yes.
Like, just use that. Eurovision.
Just send it.
Should have been a winner.
This is how I feel about you. Send that. Congratulations.
Yeah. It's brilliant. And maybe learn the dance.
Yes.
And then get Reem to TikTok you doing the dance.
Yeah, 100%. You'll go viral.
Yeah.
And viral in a good way, not viral in the way we were last week. Now, Gav. Now, Gav goes, I like chocolate and I love to have a coffee. Now, first of all, amen. Second of all, were you aware that Gav liked chocolate?
No.
I was staggered. He's not used chocolate once in this series.
No, I've never seen him use chocolate.
No, not at all. I was floored. He did it a couple of times tonight, actually. He used chocolate. I was amazed. So, chocolate shoe with a coffee ganache, hazelnut and white chocolate decorations on top. Mm-hmm. Look, in all seriousness, Gav's done some pretty awesome chocolate work in this series.
Fuck yeah. Because the night was chocolate, wasn't it? The spray painted silver night. Was that...
I'm sure there was chocolate there.
Yeah.
There was chocolate there. There was obviously the chocolate work that he did on top of that first week cake. Mm-hmm. He's done chocolate work all the way along and done some amazingly good chocolate work.
Yeah.
Making sort of, look, Gav's doing chocolate again. Look, he was. But, look, he knows his strong suit. Question without notice.
Yeah.
Where do you think Natalie got the profiterole from?
Oh, good idea.
I think I know the answer because I was looking at it. It looked like Neil made extras.
Of course he fucking made extras. Because he's making small ones. So he'd be like, that one's too big. And Nat's like, I will take that off your hands.
Yeah, it looked like Neil made extras. Now...
Savvy.
Gav then dropped his nuts. Now... And then loudly exclaimed to everybody in the shed that I'm going to need some more nuts.
I feel this is where things started to take a turn for poor Gav.
Yeah. I think, the moment that the hazelnuts all fell off the tray and onto the oven and onto the floor, kind of felt like the moment where the Bakeoff gods went...
He dropped his load.
You're going to... Always secure your load. Exactly. Pay attention to the flashing signs over the roads. Look, the innuendo was very firm with this one. The whole I'm going to need some more nuts. And it does strike me, and I mentioned this to you, that I've been playing, of all things, 2K23 golf. Don't judge me. And one of the things is you get a sponsorship for golf clubs, you get a sponsorship for apparel, and you get a sponsorship for golf balls. And it just says, hi, we are Wilson, and we would like to sponsor you for balls. And then it gets better. When you go to the course, before you do it, it asks you, would you like to refill your balls?
Look, technically men do that, every 36 hours anyway?
I've never counted.
No, I'm trying to remember my nursing studies. And that wasn't in the classroom, didn't you?
You know who might have the information to that, though?
Who?
It's time to cut to another edition of That's Science with Sandra and Cal.
Look, I was just deeply disappointed. It feels like the times when my mum and dad would trick us to going to bed by going, you want to watch the blanket show?
Oh, no.
And do you know how many times I fell for that? Every time. Like, if my mum came back alive or in ghost form now and went, ooh, Kristie, I want to watch the blanket show?
You get to bed.
I'd probably get into bed and be fooled by it.
The funny part is, if your mother did come back to haunt you, she would do that.
She fucking would. There are so many things she would do.
She'd do that and sing G'day G'day.
But
anyway.
end it with cha-cha-cha.
Cha-cha-cha. Always cha-cha-cha. However, we go back to That Science.
Yes.
But this time That Science was just like the prelude to That Science.
Oh.
So, it's like Cal's like, so why are we wearing gloves today, Sandra? And everyone's like, oh, what's this for? And she's like, I'm trying not to burn myself.
It really felt like the Curiosity show.
Yeah, I was going to say, it is very
more
Curiosity.
colourful.
Who's Dean and who's the guy with the beard? Rob. So...
Look, I think both Sandra and Cal have a little too much personality to be either of them.
I know they're more Dean then. Definitely Dean. Now, I love that Cal said, well, ignoring that there are things called oven gloves, how many gloves are you wearing to not burn yourself? The answer was triple decker. So, Adam was then worried that he put too much licorice in, and then they cut back to Gav, who is just throwing things around at this point in time. They're counting. They're into the tens. He's put a couple of them on the tray. He's got a couple of them sitting in the silicone mold. He's got a couple more. He runs off to the bench, and they go 3, 2, 1. And he just sort of, at one point, I was waiting for him to just lob them all and hope that they just landed. And he didn't. And he just looked and he just goes, didn't get them all on, did I? The answer was he got 5 of them on completed.
Yeah. Oh, look, I just felt for him at this point because you could see the potential and
I think
the nuts.
The interesting thing,
Have it.
Interesting thing this series is that I don't think we've had any baking issues. What we've had is a lot of time management issues.
Yeah.
And that might come up again when we talk about the showstopper as well, which is going to sound weird given the showstopper had 4.5 hours, but we'll talk about that. So in a moment. So let's get into the judging. So the judging. Reem, the shoe looked good. Darren loved them. Good balance between cream and mascarpone. Gav, they said that the flavour was actually quite good and the hazelnut was quite nice, but the shoe was a little bit doughy.
Yeah.
And obviously, only 5 completed. Sandra's looked generously filled. The praline on top was delicious. They did need a little bit more colour. This is where Darren brought up the fact that she didn't use the milk. But very nicely balanced flavour-wise. Galia, they did look a bit flat. However, that passion fruit cream was incredible.
Yep.
But they did say that the profiterole wasn't really that good and wasn't really up to what it needed to be. Alona, the crackline was excellent, the shoe was outstanding, and it was super crispy.
Yep.
I would have liked to have seen more of Alona doing that, but, we didn't get that.
It was because we had Gav dropping his nuts and almost had that science.
We went back to Adam 3 or 4 times to debate how much licorice is too much licorice, and I felt we could have got more Alona in place of that debate.
Okay, fair enough.
So, Adam, bold move, but pulled it off with the licorice. Crispy, very well made. Laura, they said that they looked like they could be in a French pastry shop. However, the candied fruit wasn't cooked fully, but the Earl Grey cream was smooth. Neil, they said it was a nice smooth ganache. The crackling added texture, intense flavour, but a really perfect mocha. And then we've got a Neil happy dance. Remember the Neil happy dance?
Yeah.
Because Nat comes up to him in a minute and he refuses to dance. And I'm just going to say...
He's happy. He's not going to just give out a dance if it's not earned.
Is that right, Neil? If you listen to this, can you tell us, is it just because it wasn't an earned dance?
Look, in burlesque, we don't take a piece of clothing off until
the crowd
earns it.
You're audio automated.
Exactly. We're what's that called? Noise activated.
Noise activated. Yeah, that's what I was trying to come up with.
Don't do it, Kristie.
All right.
That's my job.
So, technical.
Yes.
Now, this is where we get the joke about the 2 different sets of bakers in the 2 different sheds. Which is now a really cool concept, and I wanted to happen.
Except it happened on Big Brother, and we all saw how that.
Well, we did see how that worked, and then there was a very good. I can't remember where it was who did the sketch, but there was the sketch they did with Scott Cam and the Block, and they were like, these contestants are going to go up for the Block, And then they come around the corner, along with these contestants.
contestants.
And they come around the corner again, along with these contestants. And they actually got Scott Cam to do it. And by the end, there was something like 128 people all competing for the block. So
Maybe it's like a sliding doors moment, and they're tripping between dimensions.
So we then got 70s punk rock superstar Darren Purchase, whose advice sounded like his first 3 albums: Cold Folds, Tighten Up, and Think Pink. These are Darren Purchase's albums.
Yeah, unfortunately, Tighten Up wasn't a good follow-up to...
It's Homer Simpson.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm Marty Drell, and I'm also the Bells. And now our first single called Tighten Up, and this is the music you tighten up with. And it's him doing one man band. All right, so
The ranch.
there's a Simpsons reference to everything. So, Beef Wellington, 3 hours. Now, at this point, I do need to remind everybody we have actually had a Wellington before.
It's a lamb Wellington.
No, it was a vegetarian. It was a vegan Wellington.
Yeah, but then
Matt Moran made the vegan Wellington as a technical.
But wasn't there a Moran lamb Wellington as well?
No.
What am I thinking
He
of?
used Moran lamb in one of them, but it wasn't a Moran lamb Wellington. We got a vegan Wellington. And I remember this because I then made that vegan Wellington
Did you with the
as
duck
the
sauce?
vegetarian option
Oh, yeah, for that.
for your for your thing where I was also doing large sides of meat. And the vegetarians needed something, so I made a very small vegan Wellington. And to give you an idea, I did 3 lots of brisket in a smoker for 9 hours. Mm-mm. The hardest thing I made all day was the vegan Wellington.
No.
Oh, we did a lamb one as well?
He did a lamb one, and this is going back, because I've just looked it up, the recipe. There's no date on it, but it is there. Yeah. So...
But we did a vegan one as well.
Was it? No, that was called something else.
It was a Wellington.
Was it?
Yeah, because we had a big discussion about it. Is it really a Wellington?
Oh, okay.
There's a whole podcast episode called Is It a Wellington?
Okay, so we decided it was a Wellington, even though it was called something else.
No, they called it a Wellington.
No, because it wasn't pastry. It was wrapped in those weird flatbread things.
No, but no, pancakes, but still wrapped in pastry at the end.
Oh, God, yeah.
Because I then had to go look up if Borg's pastry was vegan.
And it is.
It is, it turns out.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't going to make puff pastry. I'm not an idiot. So we're about to talk about people who made puff pastry. So, hi guys. Anyway, now we finished our argument. Gav.
I do like that my memory remembered something.
Well done. Gav points out that he's never made it, but he's had it at a lot of parties that he goes to. I have become, over the course of this series, so intrigued by Gav's parties.
I know there are people that socialise a lot. You know those people that's like, oh, we'll at so-and-so's house for a barbecue, and we've got a 70th next week and a 30th the week after. Like, there are those people in the world, and I think Gav's one of those people.
But Gav makes all the food for it too. Well, except for the Wellington, which he doesn't make. But
no.
Everything else he makes.
Yeah, he's like, I won't do a Wellington. I've never done a Wellington. And now he's like, oh, they're going to be asking me to make a Wellington.
But, yeah, everything has been Gav's party this, Gav's party that, and now it's like Gav's party Wellington.
Will he just be starting, like, to decline going to parties where he's expected to bring a Wellington?
Everyone's like, nah, Gav, we've had enough of your party cake. What we really want... Okay, I've got a solution for him. Gav, if you would like, you can make my Wellington Croquembouche. What? I'm giving him an option.
Giving anyone an option at this point.
I want a Wellington Croquembouche.
I know you do.
Anyway.
Oh, God. It's going to happen. I can just feel it.
Completely. So, Gav, so Neil then says, it's really hard to make. I'd rather order in.
Smart. Yep.
And look, if you actually look on some of the apps, you'll probably find someone that would actually deliver you a Wellington. So.
I don't think it'd transport well, though. I think it might
Does most food from restaurants transport really well?
No, that's
true. No, it doesn't. It's possibly the messiest bake the judges have actually ever had to eat because of the juices. So they cut it open and at the table and open it up, at which point the chopping board is like flooded.
Drenched.
With just juices. everywhere.
Yeah, but that's because like the mushrooms, like you cook them off and stuff, but they've still got a lot of moisture.
Yeah, the duck cell's got a lot of moisture.
And like the meat is obviously rested, but it's still like the moisture can't escape, even when you got a little vent hole. And I'm sorry, but it just gave the Wellington an anus.
It did. Look, they did. Where we can't sugarcoat this. Not only did they give the Wellington an anus, but they inserted a thermometer in the anus.
Was either Laura or Adam who had the thermometer?
Laura at the end, who had it in the actual back end of it. Everyone else is putting it down the anus. Yeah. Laura's inserting it like...
They're like, no, Laura, we're just popping it down the butthole. And she's like, what, like this? Like, no, the butthole on top.
No, the top butthole, not the back butthole. Yeah, it was possibly the mess. Like, think about all the messy bakes they've made over the years. This was probably the messiest. There was liquid everywhere. Now...
I mean, technically your mouth is also a butthole because it's connected to the gastrointestinal tract. You're like, how did we get here?
So the puff pastry needed to be cooled and rested.
Top and bottom butthole.
So yeah, it needed to be cooled and we're all going to audience. We're coming on a journey and we're going to pretend that never happened.
Now there are so many top and bottom.
Audience, we're going along here. Don't worry about her. She'll be back in a minute. They also said you can't overcook the beef. It's got to be that pink. Don't. Laura asked a very important question at this point, which was, who spends their weekends making pastry? Quite right, Laura. Who spends their weekends? Not me. It's the thing I refuse to do. And as much as Robert will continue to pester me about that, friend of the show, hi Robert, no you listen, I refuse. I'm not making puff pastry.
I might go and make some pastry later.
No, you won't.
No, I won't.
No, you won't.
I really won't.
No, you won't. Your ADHD says differently.
Look,
the patience required to make puff pastry is not worth the eating of it.
I'll just make a rough puff.
I've got some sheets in the freezer. Just take those out.
Oh, and a pretend.
Yeah, pretend. Oh, look, I'm rolling it. Pulls the plastic off.
It's like, Kristie, there's a tweet. Kristie, did you not take the pastry off? I was book folding it.
I rolled it into perfect squares. They look like sheets.
Yeah.
So I did notice, by the way, I don't know if you saw it, but they are still using Maggie Beer products at least. I did notice a bottle of...
Verjuice?
It wasn't Verjuice. It might have been the red wine vinegar.
Oh,
but excellent. I did notice there was a bottle of Maggie Beer products on the bench.
It's probably surplus left over.
Oh, yeah. It's just sitting out the back. Cases of it.
Yeah.
The last of the Stately Beer Manor cellar. Just emptied out. Now, Reem was trying to work out how to cook the beef. And Reem's comment was, they want slightly raw meat or something. The concept of medium rare.
No, I'd like to go in to a steakhouse and they go, how would you like it? Raw, kind of raw, slightly raw, not raw.
Yeah, not raw. Yeah, well done is just not raw. So that was really interesting. I do also want to raise, though, at this point, they cut to Galia, who says, I've never made beef. In general, I've never made beef. And it did get me thinking, I wonder if that is possibly a religious thing. It could be. Feels very much like it might be. Definitely cultural.
Look, it was something that I was, kind of in two minds about tonight when I saw that one, we've got prosciutto, which is a pork product.
Yeah.
And then Galia's comment about, I've never cooked beef. And, I think it might be quite confronting. Like, if it's, I think it's like that. And then I'm thinking maybe vegetarians also have that feeling. And then I'm like, then vegans would be like, very... Yeah. Like, I don't know if there's an ick factor or something like that, or if it's just eating it. But even then, like, for me, for example, if I was handling something that was like, I don't know, cat meat to cook, like if...
Yeah.
I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's... So, I'm kind of,
It was, look, it wasn't as big of a... It was interesting. I was intrigued by the fact that, and Galia didn't look particularly happy to be doing it.
Yeah.
And look, I get it. And look, she might have been perfectly fine with it. And again, I'm not casting aspersions. I'm simply asking the question.
She might be just under the thumb of Big Chicken.
Big Chicken. Exactly.
AKA Big Bird.
Exactly. We also, again, Reem also
includes all poultry, quail.
Yeah, and look, Reem also
pigeon.
had to handle the prosciutto as well.
Spatchcock.
So that's another thing. So
turkey.
Now,
those really expensive swallows that you can't. You know the ones.
Don't make me have the conversation about what pigeon tastes like.
What does it taste like?
Nothing. It takes on. It's got absolutely no flavour to it.
Mm.
It's a nothing meat. I absolutely detested it.
It's because like the good pigeons. What were they called? The traveller pigeons. What are they were?
The homing pigeons.
No, they were big pigeons that people used to. They made them extinct because they were bigger and tastier. And during the Depression or whatever the fuck plague it was at the time.
Whatever fucking plague it was.
I don't know.
I got no idea where you're going at this
Back
point
in
time.
antique times. Don't look at me.
I am fascinated by these birds.
There is a pigeon that went out, and it was like the traveller pigeon or the journey pigeon.
Anyway, while Kristie looks up this travelling journey pigeon, I'm assuming it has a knapsack on its back, and I'm assuming it rides the rails while playing a harmonica, because it was Depression era apparently. So it's, like out there singing. We like
This
to think
is going to be like passenger pigeon. It was a passenger pigeon.
So it was on the rail cars, singing "We Like to Thank You, Herbert Hoover."
It died, the last one died on the 1st of September 1914. It was a female named Martha, and she died at Cincinnati Zoo.
At least she never saw World War One.
Yeah.
So, or the Great Depression, it turns out. So, anyway, we cut to Neil's bench.
Mm.
At which point Natalie asks Neil if he'd like to do the sizzling dance with her. And she's going and shimmying and shaking, and Neil's just like, there is no way I am doing that dance with you. And she's like, I'm going to get you. I'm going to get you. And I'm like, he's done so much dancing across this series.
I know, like, don't push it. Just let the dance happen naturally.
I thought you'd want him to push it.
No, that's what Nat wants.
Push it real good. Anyway.
That's going to happen next week.
Now, this is where we got the time call of you are welling to your bakes. So, nice little one there, Nat. Nice little one. We did the tight roll on the beef. A couple of people did like a really nice tight roll. I don't know what Reem thought she was doing. Was she tenderizing at the same time?
I have seen that technique done, but it's usually for like a roulade or something like that.
Yeah, and like when they got to the judging of Reams, one of the things they said was that the roll wasn't tight at all.
No, because I think the bashing would have just like
Shaking
kind
it
of
out.
shaked it out a bit.
Yeah, like screw, tight, but she was going tight, bang, tight, bang.
Treat it like a Swiss roll next time, Reem. You
Yep.
know, just put it in its place.
Adam trying to fold the pastry on the Wellington looked like he was doing origami.
Tuck it in like it's the 1950s maternity unit, and you don't want that baby moving at all, like barely breathing. It's not going to catch polio. You know why? Because it can't fucking breathe. Sorry, back at the ranch.
That's a tangent. So
Back at the
yeah,
shed.
Adam's folding of the origami. I was waiting for him. Was it a Wellington? Was it a sailing boat? Was it a crane? But he and Laura both look terrified by the concept of folding the pastry onto the Wellington, and I'm like, that's the easy bit. Like everything else, like the duck cell's hard. The all of that other stuff is really hard. The folding of the pastry feels like the easy bit.
Yeah, but I know, and we've seen this, we're pointing this out in weeks gone by. You know, you're reading comprehension. I'm sure by that point of the bake, you're second guessing yourself. Because like last week, we saw a lot of parsley in different places.
We really did.
So
It was a butcher's display case.
yes, I understand that kind of like hesitancy to commit to the fold before triple checking something.
At this point, we've got the lattice work and the spouting hole, which was officially what it was called.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you know.
And then we come to the most important question, I think, of the whole episode. What would be in a pork Auckland? Because
Okay.
Cal Wilson did say, at this point, it's good to make sure you're not making a pork Auckland.
You did pose this to me, and I was thinking, right? So, I've been to Auckland. The first night I was in Auckland, I went to a South Sea Islander celebration thing.
Yep.
There was a lot of spam, so I feel like instead of the duxel, you'd have spam, like
Yep.
spamsel. Inside, look, I'm just thinking pork sausages. Like New Zealanders don't fuck around.
So
But you think they'd be
I think you're partly there.
Because there's lots of fucking sheep.
Thank you. I was wondering how long it was going to take you to work out why I said there'd be lamb. It's a New Zealand dish. Of course there's lamb. But here's the way I would do it. I think the pork product is close. I think spam is your pork. I don't think it's pork. I think it's
spam is
spam.
the middle.
And I think it is
wrapped
a
in
lamb duxelle.
Lamb duxelle, okay.
So I think it's spam with a lamb duxelle. Anyone else who's got an answer for us, please let us know, either on Instagram, on Twitter, on Threads. Don't care where you do, Facebook.
And
Pigeon, passenger pigeon if you can find one.
no, they're extinct.
Exactly. But wouldn't it be nice to receive one?
It would be. So I reckon then when they do it, because I was thinking like the beef Wellingtons were looking very pineapple-y.
Yeah.
And they could do them in the shape of like the pineapple lollies that you get from New Zealand.
Just make them dull pineapple and be done with it. For someone who wouldn't do Nat's dance earlier, Neil then did a lot more happy dancing. We got more happy dancing. I'm like, Nats must be standing in the corner just feeling rejected.
Yeah.
Nobody puts Natalie in a corner. Then we come back to Gav, who in jest turns around and goes, I'm going to win tonight, number 1. And I'm like, the Bakeoff gods don't like it when you do that, even when you're joking. Don't do that.
Oh. I'm assuming by this point he's just throwing caution to the wind. He goes, what else could go wrong?
And at this point, Alona was running around at the end, helping out Reem first, and then Galia to get their Wellingtons onto the board.
Yeah.
Basically, she was paper pulling.
Yeah, it was awesome.
So that's okay. I don't like help in the technical, but that was just pulling paper off to make sure it didn't stick. I'm fine with that.
Like I think
that's fair.
That's not a knowledge or skills based kind of thing.
No, it's pulling paper off a Wellington isn't a skills thing. All right, so the judging. Sandra's good uniform shape, nice wrap, good crisp, nice and pink. Seasoning was spot on. I said quite a skill in making this one.
Nice work, Sandra.
Gav, good colour on the pastry, good lattice work, beautifully pink, slightly misshapen, but a great effort.
I am going to pause you there though. Sandra, are you more used to making mousse Manitobas?
What's in a mousse Manitoba?
I don't know. It's different to a caribou, British Columbia. I couldn't think of something beginning with C, or a quail Quebec. And now I'm just going to go through and
run through all the provinces?
Yes.
Come on, a New Brunswick Newt.
No, it'd be a New Brunswick.
Yeah, New Brunswick. Sorry, my bad. Come on, keep going.
No, I can't.
I'm here for you.
Oh, I'm trying to think of... it should have been a beaver, British Columbia, shouldn't it?
Should have been a beaver, British Columbia.
Oh, a beaver and caribou, British Columbia.
2 beavers are better than 1. Anyway, moving on. It's a How I Met Your Mother reference, people. Anyway, Neil, they liked the slightly darker cooking on the pastry. Possibly wrapped too quickly, however. The flavour was definitely there and the seasoning was spot on. Reem, the beef was perfectly cooked, but it wasn't wrapped tightly. So as a result, you got soggy pastry. Galia, they said good golden colour, but needed a bit longer. Was very pink. But Rachel said that the beef was actually cooked to perfection. So apparently it was fine. Alona, good colour, perfect centre. Pastry was flaky, good flavour. Adam, good golden colour. The beef was very nicely cooked. The pastry was flaky in parts. Sometimes it was a little bit too thick on the pastry, though.
Yeah.
And then Laura, same sort of thing. Nice colour. The pastry, however, was too thick, and the duxelle was nice, but the whole thing ended up being undercooked because of the thickness.
Yeah.
So Laura was last, which is a very unfamiliar place for her.
Yeah.
Then Adam, again unfamiliar. Then Reem, Alona, Galia, Neil, Gav, and Sandra. Sandra wins a technical. She was so desperate to win one.
Well done.
Now, she sort of taunted the gods a little bit by saying that she would like to win a technical before the end.
Yeah.
Then we got to the showstopper, and careful Icarus.
Yeah.
She flew far too close to the sun. So let's get into it. The showstopper was a checkerboard cake.
Oh, lovely. I thought this was a good choice for Vintage Week.
Now, before we get into that specifically, we do need to answer the question that Natalie posed.
Yes.
One of them is a snitch.
Oh, yeah.
Now, I think I know the answer.
Who?
It's Natalie, because she's the only one who knew there was a snitch.
True.
Like,
she outed herself.
and not only did she know was the only one who knew there was a snitch, but she knew the process via which the snitch would be operating. That's like someone standing up and going, so, one of us is a spy, and everyone's going, what?
This is a poorly thought out game theory execution, isn't it?
It's terribly thought out. One of us is a snitch. And everyone else is going,
there's a snitch?
well, clearly we know the answer to this, because either you're the snitch or you know who the snitch is, in which case just tell everyone and end the problem.
Oh no, what if Nat ends up like the equivalent of being murdered on Bakeoff, which is I'm assuming that someone just doesn't pour you a cup of tea.
Yeah. Yeah, when they're doing the tea thing, who wants tea? And she goes, yes, please. And they're like, not you.
It's like, look, there's been a crime.
His hands are a Coke Zero. No tea, just a Coke Zero. All right. Now you must have 3 colours. It must be encased, but it could be any shape, flavour, or design. So you didn't even have to do different flavoured cakes. It could be one flavour, just different colours.
Yeah.
4.5 hours. Now, I question the 4.5 hours.
I don't.
But let me explain why I question it. Because it's actually slightly different to what you're expecting.
All right. Go ahead. I'm not stopping you.
One, a checkerboard cake should take roughly 2.5 hours.
Right.
Now, where I think the 4.5 hours is supposed to be there is for added decoration. We talked about this added showstoppiness. Make it big, make it bold, make it brassy, make it whatever you want. Right? But 4.5 hours is a bit of a dangerous one, because if you factor in you're baking on TV, unfamiliar equipment, it's really 3 hours to 3 hours 15. So that extra time offers you this tantalizing window of flooring it, where you might start to do other things that don't quite come off because you don't actually have enough time to do them.
That's
It's in some ways it's too short, in some ways it's too long.
Your argument is nonsensical in that they've given time for a showstopper for a cake that relies on it being cooled in order to put together. And I think it's fair to do that because you want good execution.
Yeah.
And like this is like we always want the best from our bakers, don't we?
Yeah.
So your argument was this is too long, but actually it's too short. Which is it, Chris?
Too long. You want me to really tell you it's too long?
Why is it too long? Because it's too short?
How long does it take to cool the cake?
I don't give a fuck how long it takes to cool a cake. I want to see good product at the end of it. And I think there's no point in wasting food by shortening. Like, I reckon they'd probably give them, an extra half an hour. And I think that's great because we didn't have anyone that didn't put up something that you wouldn't consider a showstopper. And I appreciate that.
So what you're saying is, for example, so you're expecting the quality of decoration to be up then?
Yeah, and also execution and flavour because you've got a chance to actually take your time and taste the batter and stuff before.
Okay, cool. So now we get what we call shed corner
What was
time.
that response?
No, we're fine. We'll move on. Shed corner time. So shed corner time, which is not table time, it's shed corner time. I'm kind of...
Look, it doesn't... Okay, it's socially, right? Having a discussion over a table indicates that you're deliberating, that you're taking time, you're having a cup of tea, you're having a conversation. Standing in a corner and talking about people while you're looking at them is fucking bitchy and gossipy.
Yeah.
And that's what's coming across. It's like, they're not saying anything bitchy and gossipy. It's the same stuff they'd say over a table, over a cup of coffee, except they're standing in a corner. It just doesn't...
While you're baking. And the other thing is too, and I know it's being done with as a really cool little joke to sort of get the segment moving along, but what do you think they're saying with them watching them in the corner?
Yeah.
It kind of doesn't help that idea.
No.
It's not sitting. First week I was like, this is different. I don't mind it. Mm-hmm. The more it's gone on, I really don't like this bit at all.
No.
Especially when they start talking about where people have or haven't done it. Like again, last week, what happened where they talked about Felicity often struggles, which was a load of bullshit.
Yeah.
It just felt really harsh. And like the way they did it this week, it was bizarre. So this week was just like, Alona is going brilliantly. We haven't seen Alona. You haven't shown us Alona. We got no Alona in the coverage. And then you're like, she's been absolutely perfect so far. And yeah, she had been, and she was. But show us. Don't get to the corner and then suddenly go, oh, Alona's been great.
Yeah.
Can we see it? Like, a little bit of it would be nice. We saw the same, and again, this is not at those bakers.
No.
Because they don't control where the cameras go, etc. We saw the same bakers over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. And Alona is apparently just over in the corner baking, and they're going, she's been absolutely flawless, and we didn't see any of it.
Look, no, we did see more in the showstopper, I think.
Well, we did after this, but I'm saying up to this point.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
Like, that was just weird. And then we get the in danger, and like the in danger bit was fine this week because Laura was kind of in danger, Galia was in danger, and Gav was in danger. So they were right. I still don't like the fact they're talking about that in the corner of the shed. It just feels wrong. So let's cut to Gav, because yep, Gav's making a pyramid cake with fondant artifacts: white chocolate, dark chocolate, peppermint, and caramel and sweet potato. Did you know that Gav likes chocolate?
No idea.
Nah, never. Actually, forget the chocolate. We don't talk about it. The sweet potato.
Look, if it was ube, I'd understand.
Yeah.
Because that's a common use in desserts. Sweet potato, like sweet potato pie,
Yeah.
that's cool.
The caramel and sweet potato, though, sounds stodgy.
Oh, it sounds too much.
Yeah. It like and look, when to skip ahead to when they cut it open,
Yeah.
that layer looked dense. It looked really dense. It actually looked like something they could have used to fill up gaps in the pyramids. Waterproof them. So now he also turned around at this point and said, I'm going to nail it today. And I'm just there going, the Bakeoff gods are hovering above this shed going, really? Really? You're going to nail it today? Make note. Him.
Look, we're not saying don't be positive in the shed. We're just saying...
And I look at this point as well. We've said that Rachel hasn't given a lot of good feedback, but Rachel did say to him, I'm a bit worried about the sweet potato, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
So she was very good on that. Neil. Now, can I just say, the way that Neil delivered this line is one of my favourite things I've heard this season. What is it? It's a party cake. Think bright colours, sprinkles, puppies, kittens, you name it. And it was just so deadpan. Like, it's just like party cake and delivered in the most deadpan way and like sprinkles, puppies and kittens.
I'm glad that Neil's cakes don't come out as dry as his
Humour. I love Neil's humour because Neil says all of this stuff and there's this very small underlying smirk.
Yes.
And you don't get it, especially when they're not showing him.
Yep.
You don't get it.
I think it's brilliant.
So now it was strawberry and coconut cake covered in rainbow sprinkles with an isomalt top.
Yep.
Now they were worried about the humidity for the isomalt. You shouldn't have been. Yep. He nailed that. Then we go back to Reem, who once again talks about when I think of vintage stuff, I think of furniture. And usually on that furniture, there's some weird crochet thing on it. But I'm making a pretty crochet thing. And look, I had a lot of friends growing up who had very traditional Lebanese houses. And yes, there was quite often a crocheted thing on a bit of furniture that looked a bit old. So I get where she's coming from. But, like, it seems like the only thing that Reem had in her head was crochet and furniture.
But ugly furniture.
Ugly furniture. And ugly crochet.
Yes.
But she was going to make nice crochet.
And on behalf of all the crocheters, and I'm not a crocheter, crochet is beautiful. There's some good shit these days. Like, the things that crocheters can make, it just blows my mind. Like, little, like, fucking TARDISes and fucking cute shit.
And then the flavours that she went for, cream cheese frosting, chocolate, cream cheese frosting and chocolate. The cake was lemon, peanut butter, and guava.
Which, yeah, I was there going, would this work? And I'm thinking, well, if you think about satay, for example, and how, like, pad thai, for example, that's peanuts and that is lemon through it. And so I was seeing where this was going, and I think it was brilliant.
Yeah, so you got citrus, peanut.
Peanut, yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense. So Sandra was there making her icing, going, now the green is for the vanilla cake because all vanilla things are green, aren't they?
Yes.
We then come back to Galia, who was piping flowers at the time.
Kermit the Frog, totally vanilla.
Yes. So Galia went with blueberry and red velvet.
Greenland, absolutely vanilla.
Nothing but vanilla.
Nothing but vanilla.
So yeah, blueberry and red velvet were two of her three flavours.
Greenwich, vanilla.
The third of Galia's flavours I wish was vanilla because it was very green. And it was very matcha. She's the only baker still to use matcha. Everyone else got the memo this year. Galia, please. Please. No matcha. No mo matcha. No mo matcha.
Oh, God. And now we have the title of the episode.
Not yet, we don't. I haven't got into my Egyptian rant yet.
Oh, God. How long are we at for this podcast? Do we just do the Egyptian rant as, as a bonus?
Then we go Darren Purchase, who actually said to Galia, cakes are your thing, aren't they? And she went, yep, cakes are my thing. And the Bakeoff gods went, really? Interesting. Mark that. Mark that. The Bakeoff gods had a very busy time in this episode.
They were.
Then Alona got a little bit of screen time. We cut to Alona. It's like, yeah. And then we moved off it. I'm like, boo. Mm-hmm. Then Adam, who's making a spicy marg cake.
This is why they gave him a lot of screen time. I'm assuming he's bribing everyone with some booze.
So, pipe cactus, chili crumb, orange and lime cake soaked in tequila.
This is something I would have been excited to try.
Darren was warning him about the cake being too moist before soaking. He's like, you've actually got to make it really dry before you soak, otherwise it's going to run and fall apart. Mm-hmm. Then we go back to Sandra, who was making what she referred to as a generic chili in the chili jam. I think they're very mild. So she was doing passion fruit, vanilla, and coconut cake with the chili and pineapple jam between layers. Mm-hmm. I really want that chili pineapple jam. It looked incredible.
Absolutely.
But the spice, when she tasted it, she's like, that's good. Oh, that's got a kick. Then the other question they asked was, where's the best place to hide in the shed?
Where would you... I liked Cal's mixer impersonation. I think I just cover myself in flowers and just blend into the background.
You do a really good job of doing that too.
Yeah, just kind of like...
Or your other
pots
idea...
of hairs, like Bakeoff camo.
You had another idea.
Gingham. What was my other idea?
Cameraman.
Oh yeah, you hide behind you stand behind the cameraman, you don't exist.
Yeah, no one exists behind the cameraman. My answer was, obviously, look, if you could look in the ovens, that'd be a really interesting place to hide, although dangerous when they turn them on.
Proofing drawer.
The proofing drawers, obviously, Smeg, those proofing drawers, you can prove how comfortable they are for Smeg. There you go, there's a plug for you. However, I chose behind the fake back wall at the back where the production centre is. It's technically...
the washing up centre.
Yeah, it's technically inside the shed, but it's its own little thing. Anyway... and I'm not speaking out of turn. Everyone knows about that. Hell, Nicole talked about it on the podcast. Mm-hmm. So, Reem was then making herself into a manual stand mixer by putting that thing where you put the beater in the thing and then rub your hands back and forward and made herself into At this point, she was literally a child again. Just like, I'm a mixer. So Alona was going with a chocolate, vanilla...
Did the representative from Smeg come in and go...
No.
No, you're not.
No, you're not. No, you're not. You're not one of the fine appliances that we have. So Alona's cake was chocolate, vanilla, and fennel with a design that looked like the set of blankety blanks. I was waiting for Graham Kennedy and Ugly Dave Gray to appear and do did. Then they cut to Laura, who was making a miso caramel, pistachio, blackberry, and caramel cake. Mm-hmm. Salty, fermenty, umami was the way he described it.
Yep.
Then we go back to Adam, who's like, so here comes the tequila. One for the bake, one for me. Does a shot, and then goes, I need a bit of orange juice. It's been a while since I shot tequila.
Yeah, I feel you on that, Adam. If I did a shot of tequila now, I would need more than orange juice.
Also, far more importantly, he should have got lime, and he should have got salt. And it should have been lipstick. Yeah, exactly.
The days of getting free drinks.
So Laura then realised that she'd run out of buttercream, so she luckily had a bit of miso caramel left over and was able to quickly scramble up some more buttercream to hold the whole thing together. Again, a really bad cake to run out of buttercream on because you need it to hold the layers together.
Yeah.
Then Natalie came over to Alona's bench and went, look, I need to add to what's going on here, and handed over a photo of her cat, Nana. Now, can I just point out that Nana's backlighting made Nana look like a Twitch streamer. I wouldn't put it beyond Natalie Tran to have a cat that's a Twitch streamer.
Look, I also want to bring up things of consent because, she's getting a lot of unsolicited pussy pics here. And I just feel this might be a trend for Alona.
Oh, you got to watch out, Alona. People is going to be coming down the street throwing pussy pics at you.
Yeah. You'll be like, oh, enough pussy. And all your friends will be like, oh, that's something to be...
I like the idea, though, that she's
about,
going to end up with like a gallery at home of pictures of all of these other cats. But Bernard hates other cats.
He is going to lose it.
So it's going to be in a different room.
I'm sure she's going to be, she'll have to do a bunker. A secret bunker.
But then if Bernard gets in there, I worry for Alona's safety. Because Bernard looks like the sort of cat that will cut someone.
Mostly Alona.
Mostly Alona.
If there's other cats involved.
Yeah. So then,
you've got
right
something to
on
say about
cue,
that,
one of our
Senator?
cats has turned up.
This is Senator Palpatine, my big black pussy.
Now at this point...
I'll send you a picture of it, Alona.
Now at this point, Sandra, who is flying, she is baking probably her best week inside there. She's definitely in the running, turns to the camera and goes, yep, I want to be star baker this week. And the Bakeoff gods laugh. And the Bakeoff gods went, scrap your other plans. Her. And they made sure that wasn't going to happen. The Bakeoff gods had their vengeance this week. This was very much the Bakeoff gods week.
And it wasn't a hard vengeance. It was more like, oh, you're going to do a little pineapple there, are you?
The Bakeoff gods were very Greek gods this week.
Do you think that's going to be a pineapple?
They were Greek gods this week.
Yeah.
They were like, oh, look, I'm going to come home after all this time. I'm going to flick your boat over there. Come on, Odysseus. Get home, you bastard. It was the Greek gods being mischievous. It wasn't to the level of, the Trojan War itself.
No.
It was just them being mischievous. It's before Zeus couldn't keep it in his pants.
This is Hermes, or one of them bringing out fucking a golden apple.
Yeah, exactly.
Just being a little trickster.
Now, then Neil starts blowing the ice malt. And, look, Natalie asked for a dog balloon out of that. I was inundated with people going, why is Neil making a condom?
That was my first thought. I'm like, is that how they make flavoured condoms?
Flavoured condom topper.
I'm sure it tasted much better.
Ice malt. Yeah, it would have definitely. Galia was piping flowers and Reem was crocheting. So that's what you do. Neil's blowing ice malt, Galia's piping flowers, Reem's crocheting. Another week in Bakeoff. Then we go to Gav, who is talking about, well, maybe we can get there. You're just out there at a picnic and, you're next to the pyramids and you dig up a mummy.
God, I'm going to go make a cup of tea.
Yeah, you can make a cup of tea. So, Gav, I don't really want to have to correct you on this, but it was also demanded. It was also demanded. There were historians asking questions of me. So, the pyramids contained pharaohs. They weren't next door. The pharaoh didn't drop dead next door and was casually sprawled. You know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to lay next to this pyramid. By the way, it's not a joke. Kristie has actually gone off to make a cup of tea. That's not a joke. The pharaohs were inside the buildings. The Egyptians did understand the concept of keeping them inside buildings at all times. Also, far more importantly, the pyramids are very primitive as burial chambers. And it sounds really weird to say that, but, the pyramids are the equivalency of a giant flashing lots of gold here sign.
Yes.
And within 15 years of the pyramids being sealed up, everything inside was gone. Because everyone went, there's the gold. All the Mummy's Curse stories are literally because the poor population who were usually taken up to be thieves and criminals to go and loot these pyramids. Well, what was going to stop them? Well, they were usually uneducated because that's why they were able to be put in these positions. And so you fool them by going, well, there's a mummy's curse. And the mummy's curse will kill you and your family. And they would believe it. What the Egyptians actually did...
Say that, but then Imhotep.
What the Egyptians actually worked out later on was, well, why don't we put them underground and hide them? Except they hid them all in the same spot, which meant once you found one, hey, you could find them all. So the other thing was...
for archaeologists, that was the case.
Yeah. The other good part about... By the way, Hatshepsut was the person who came up with the idea... Well, didn't come up with the idea, but she was the one who enacted the idea of the Valley of the Kings. Hatshepsut's my favourite pharaoh. My area might be Egypt. Anyway, the most important part of all of this is that most of the other mummies were moved by the priests before anybody got there. So they'd bury them, and about a year, 2 years later, the priests would go, they haven't looted that one yet, but they might be getting close. Quick. And they'd go and smuggle all the bodies off and go and throw them in a cache in a hillside. But they didn't label anybody, and they quite frequently put them in different coffins because, they wanted to hide the bodies really effectively. But that's led to problems of identification.
So, if the Egyptian afterlife is real,
yeah,
and you're a pharaoh,
yeah,
starts off great.
Yeah.
You got everything you
Book of
need.
the Dead's on the walls. You know how to get through the challenges.
Yep. I'm hoping you've got through them before some cunt comes along and just steals all your shit.
And put you in to mock you, put you in a sarcophagus that's double the size of you.
And so in the afterlife then, does that mean all these rich poor people are there after they're dead with all their riches, and you've got beggar pharaohs?
No, it's more than it's also because they've got
they wouldn't get through because their heart would be weighed and wouldn't be light as a feather. It
wouldn't be light as a feather. They would be eaten, but you've also got the pharaohs would still have the Ushaptis with them, which were the small statuettes, which were to come to life and assist them in the afterlife as their helpers. Now they needed to do that because they did originally start burying assistants and realised good help was hard to find. So they should probably stop burying the real ones and start just making...
continuation of management.
I like the idea that it was a vizier who came up with that idea because he was going to get buried with the pharaoh and went, I could. Or how about...
Yeah.
I stay on and manage the place and we just make a likeness of me in clay. Comes to life. The priest can do that, can't you? And the priest looks at him and goes, I don't know if he goes, if you don't say yes, you're in there with me. Yep, we can do that. But the long and the short of it is, Gav, they put them in the pyramids. They weren't lazing outside the pyramids. It wasn't like they walked up to the pyramid, oh, look, the pyramids, and dug next door and went, oh, look, a body. That would be like the idea of having the giant sort of, the tombs for the unknown soldier and the unknown soldier's resting on the steps.
If the mummy is outside the pyramid, though...
Run.
Right, yes.
Run.
Yes.
Imhotep. Run like the wind. The mummy's outside. Go.
You and Brendan Fraser. Just...
Yep.
Brendan Fraser.
All right.
Hightailing it out of the desert.
Now, I was going to raise that... We sort of raised that question.
Weiss.
We raised that question before about design.
Bisexuals.
In terms of... there was a couple of them that looked a little bit scratch cakey, but we'll let it pass.
No, but Alona's was a scratch cake, and I think it was a good reason why, because too much fucking icing on that would have ruined the flavour and the texture.
I agree that too much icing on that would have ruined it. It was more about just general design. But anyway, we'll move on. So Reem turns around to Sandra at the end and goes, yours is like a pineapple. And Sandra's like, a fat pineapple. And Reem's like, but a pineapple still?
Look, all pineapples are good pineapples.
They really are.
Fat, thin, tall, short, with or without spikes.
Pineapple solidarity. All right, the judging. Reem. Love the decoration on the outside.
Don't fruit shame.
Looked good when cut, and the flavours worked really well together.
Yeah.
Galia, elegant, very clear definition in her layers. Lovely texture, but the flavours were still a little bit too subtle. But look, she's got the design bit down. She now just needs to work the flavours out. Sandra, a bit rough and ready on the outside. Checkerboard looked amazing, however. The flavour was really good, and Darren loved the chili jam. Did say that it took away some of the other flavour, but he's like, but the chili. Alona, it resembles Darren's Nan's wallpaper. The cross-section, however, was absolutely flawless. Rachel loved the use of fennel and actually wants to borrow the sort of technique that she used.
Yeah.
Laura, they said the flavour just missed the mark. The sponges all tasted a bit similar. Which was interesting because the sponges didn't have to be of different flavours.
Yep.
So it was
But I
interesting.
guess
Though.
if you've
If
stayed
you've told them it's supposed to be different. Then you got Gavin, and when they were cutting it up, Cal made an Egyptian joke, and then Darren turned around and went, Cal thinks she's funny. And I'm like, Darren Purchase made it funny!
I'm just disappointed that they probably edited out Natalie Tran trying to get everyone to walk away from the bench.
Like an Egyptian.
Like an Egyptian.
Yes. Fun theme, but the checkerboard effect was diminished with the shape. The flavours were too heavy, and the sweet potato wasn't the right consistency. Neil's looked amazing. The checkerboard effect was great, but they wanted a bit more flavour in the cake itself. And look, Neil was one of the ones who did one flavour in the cake. So, like, if the flavour was a little bit under, the whole flavour was a bit under. Adam, the presentation looked great. They said it was a very neat checker pattern. Rachel loved the chili crumb. It balanced really well with the lime, and it was very well executed.
I reckon if Adam had possibly won the technical, there was a chance he was Star Baker.
Yeah.
Because his signature was strong, like probably not the best. I think Alona and a couple others.
Neil's was brilliant. But Adam came second last in the technical, so you couldn't.
Yeah.
But Alona, again, she's very clean. She's very consistent. She's very precise. What she does is just really well executed. Very good Star Baker. Perfect choice. Correct choice.
Yeah.
Going home, look, a couple of them had a few bumps here and there, but unfortunately, it was... Gav didn't serve the full number of profiteroles in the first challenge, and that probably doomed him regardless of what happened in that last challenge.
Because he did get second in the technical, but with the
his showstopper wasn't great.
Being, and the checkerboard pattern in the pyramids didn't show up.
Yeah, so. And the sweet potato consistency wasn't quite right.
Wasn't right.
But it was good to see him try things. And look, we'll ask him about that.
Yeah.
Because after this episode, we'll be up tonight, and then, probably most of you will be listening to this in the morning because it's late. But Wednesday night, we'll be chatting to Gav.
Yes.
So we'll have some questions there. We'll ask him about chocolate. I don't know if he's ever used it before.
Yeah, we'll just ask him if he likes it first.
Yeah, we'll find out if Gav likes using chocolate or not. So we'll be talking to Gav. That'll be up also tomorrow. If you haven't listened to it, go back and listen to our chat with Felicity. That was a really good conversation. Beaming in from overseas.
I know.
And if you really can stomach it and you didn't listen to last week's episode and you want to hear us cough, go back and listen to that too.
Yeah.
But thank you everyone again. Remember, if you like what we're doing, if you vaguely like what we're doing, please like it. Please share it with people. Please put it out there. It really helps us out when you sort of tell everybody else that you're enjoying it. Until next time, I'm still Chris.
And I'm still Kristie.
And we will catch you all later.
Mo much and mo problems.